Welcome to Gemara Academy. In this class, we will learn Tosfos Dibra Maschil Ein Mafsikin. Let's begin. Ein Mafsikin, one doesn't have to stop. The Mishnah said that there are 5 activities that a person is not allowed to do before davening Tfilas Mincha. If, however, a person began one of these 5 activities, the halacha is Ein Mafsikin, one doesn't have to stop, rather you can continue doing that activity. So there's one point at Tosfos, which is Tosfos will explain when do we say this, that the person could just continue doing the activity, and he'll bring 2 proofs to his explanation. So it says Tosfos, and it's in a purple arrow pointing upwards because he's explaining when is this din said. V'dafka b'di'ika shows bayem lehispalel, and specifically when there's time in the day to daven, then we say the person can continue doing the activity and he'll daven afterwards. If, however, by continuing to do the activity there won't be time to daven afterwards, then we most certainly will stop him so that he should be able to daven Tfilas Mincha. So in other words, the Mishnah is not saying the person could continue doing the activity and disregard Tfilas Mincha. Rather, what the Mishnah is saying is the person could continue doing the activity, and we're not going to concern ourselves with the worry that he might come to forget. Rather, we'll rely that he will remember to daven Tfilas Mincha afterwards. And Tosfos brings 2 proofs to this. The first is from the Gemara later on in our Amid, like it's indicated in the Gemara that said, by Mincha drunkenness isn't common. Later on in our Amid, the Gemara asks, why is it that by Ma'ariv, if it's a chayv, an obligation to daven, the halacha is that if a person was eating a meal, he needs to stop in order to daven Ma'ariv. Whereas by Mincha we say, he doesn't have to stop the meal. He could continue the meal and daven Mincha afterwards. And the Gemara explains, because by Ma'ariv time, by supper time, it's common for a person to become drunk by the meal. Whereas by Mincha, by lunchtime, it's not common for the person to become drunk by the meal. And therefore, by Ma'ariv, we are worried that he'll become drunk and miss Tfilas Ma'ariv. However, by Mincha, we're not worried he's going to become drunk and miss Tfilas Mincha. So says Tosfos, Mashma de'ein le'lahafsit Tfilas Mincha. This indicates that he's not allowed to miss Tfilas Mincha. We're saying that drunkenness is not common, and therefore we're not worried that he's going to miss Tfilas Mincha. That means he's still obligated and expected to daven Tfilas Mincha. So that's the first proof that we're saying that the person could continue doing the activity, but he's expected and still obligated to daven mincha afterwards. And the second proof, says Tosfos, uva sukkah, and this is the Gemara sukkah that was mentioned in the previous Tosfos. Uva sukkah behedyum muki masnisin b'dika shows. And in Masech the Sukkah, he clearly establishes our Mishnah by when there's time. The Gemara Masech the Sukkah explains that our Mishnah is referring to a case when the person completes the activity, he still has time to daven Tfilas Mincha. Where does the Gemara in Sukkah say this? So Tosfos brings it down. The Mishani Amasha Sheivesi Le'el Hadi shows V'Hada Leka shows. For he answers, and what I brought earlier, this is where there is time, and this is where there isn't time. Tosfos brought down previously, it's the previous Tosfos Dibra Maschil V'Im Eschilu In Mafsikim, a question that the Gemara Masech the Sukkah asks, and that is, why is it that a person needs to stop his meal for mitzvah lulav and he doesn't need to stop his meal for Tfilas Mincha? And the Gemara over there explains that by lulav we're referring to a case where if the person would continue his meal, he wouldn't have time to do the mitzvah of lulav. Whereas in our Mishnah it's referring to if when the person finishes his meal, he does have time to daven Tfilas Mincha. So clearly the Gemara Masech the Sukkah says that our Mishnah is referring to when there is still time to daven Tfilas Mincha afterwards. So to summarize, Tosfos basically explains that we only say the person doesn't have to stop if there'll be time to daven Tfilas Mincha afterwards, and he brings 2 proofs that this explanation is correct.